get ready to rumble!
What up, y'all? It's Dat Boy back with another edition of Throwdown Thursday, and it's NFL playoff time. Now, this is always a bittersweet time of the year because obviously with the NFL playoffs, we got the best teams playing with the best competition, and I'm definitely pumped for this weekend. But, of course, the NFL Redzone has come to an end this season. Hands down, the best TV show out there because not only is it just 7 hours of non-stop action with zero commercials, with this kind of show, there's never a series finale. I mean, what's better than that? But yes, it is NFL playoff time, and we got to take a look at our power rankings here and kind of reorganize the hierarchy of these teams going into the playoffs. I don't necessarily think that the seeding matches the team's ability. So I'm going to go ahead and give my opinion on all the teams that are going into the playoffs, and then we're going to go ahead and look at these lines and make some picks. Let's get to it. All right, let's go ahead and get rid of all these teams that are not in here. Boop. Sorry, Vikes. Sorry, Panthers. Sorry, Lions. Not really, though. Cards and Dolphins. And let's go ahead and split these up by conference. All right, so the Bills played really well at the end of the season. I mean, I'm definitely high on them, but at the same time, I'm not putting them over the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the favorite to win the Super Bowl going into the year. They went throughout the year and have the best record and are the number one seed, so they're the best team in the league right now until someone beats them. Simple as that. Now, it's really hard for me to decide who's better, the Bills or the Ravens. I've been high on the Bills all year, and the last month of the season, they've been killing it. But the Ravens, in my opinion, were definitely the better team at the beginning of the season going into it. And in my opinion, they got the best defense in the playoffs. The Ravens hit a rough spot with COVID, and they had to get their schedule all out of whack. And that's kind of the reason that they lost a couple games and fell a little bit in the power rankings. But even though the Bills have been playing well over the last month, the Ravens have been playing really well too. You got Lamar Jackson, who's the running back with the arm, and then you got Allen, who's the fullback with the arm. The Ravens have a more talented backfield with Dobbins and Edwards, but the Bills got Stephon Diggs, who's been killing it this year too. So I think when it comes to talent, the Ravens still have a slight edge, but when it comes to momentum, I mean, I don't think there's a hotter team right now than the Bills. While the Ravens have covered the last 5 games in a row, the Bills have covered the last 8 games in a row. I mean, that's half the season. Momentum's clearly on the Bills' side. We'll just see if they can keep it up throughout the playoffs. All right, in the 4th spot, I'm just going to go ahead and leave the Steelers. The Steelers were the last team to be undefeated. They ran into some COVID issues. They had some injury trouble. But they still have a good defense. I keep forgetting that they have Minkah Fitzpatrick on their defense. I mean, to be honest, I probably would have put the Steelers right behind the Chiefs if they still had Bush and Dupree in there. But those 2 injuries were huge. The Steelers don't really have a running game. While Ben's been playing well and they have a pretty good wide receiver core, Juju Smith-Schuster is not better than dudes like Tyreek Hill or Stephon Diggs or anything like that. I mean, he's a good wide receiver, but they don't really have anybody too dominant. Obviously, Claypool's been playing well, and Washington's a pretty good receiver too. Due to the injuries, I just don't think they have enough firepower to really compete with the Ravens, Bills, or Chiefs. In the 5 spot, I'm going to go ahead and leave the Titans. The Titans are all offense, no defense. They're 4th in total score in the league right now. They got 2 monster wide receivers on the outside, and they have my favorite player this year, Derrick Henry, just steamrolling people. Their offense is a problem. The thing they keep running into in a lot of these games, though, is their defense is so bad that they get behind. And, I mean, let's face it, the Titans are a running team. If I was Tennessee, I would definitely take the kickoff if they win the coin toss in every game in the playoffs. And obviously, we saw what the Titans did last year in the playoffs. While they don't look like they have a whole lot of momentum going into the playoffs this year, there's no doubt that this team is talented. While I think people could definitely make the case the Titans could be better than the Steelers right now, I just feel like the Steelers are more balanced on both sides of the ball than the Titans are. And while the Steelers might not be as explosive as the Titans on offense, obviously having Ben and, like I said, the group of wide receivers they have, I mean, it's not a terrible offense either. And then next up, I'm going to go ahead and put the Browns over the Colts. The Browns are a team I would definitely have higher if they had Odell Beckham Jr., and now they just lost Olivier Vernon for the season as well. So the Browns are kind of in the middle of the pack in scoring offense. I think they're 14th in the league right now, but they do have a good running game and a ball control type of offense. I mean, this Browns backfield is a problem for defenses. I mean, Chubb is a stud, no doubt, and Kareem Hunt is too. Like, not only can this dude, run the ball really effectively, he's going out and making catches downfield all the time too. But when you watch the Browns, they're just inconsistent. I mean, that game last week with the Steelers was way too close when the Steelers were clearly not trying to win. The Browns did beat the Titans and the Colts this year, so some might argue maybe you should put the Browns over the Titans, but in that Browns win over the Titans, the Browns came out on fire in the first half and then almost blew it in the second half after having like a multi-touchdown lead. This Browns team is just way too inconsistent, and I don't think they have the firepower compared to all the teams above them without OBJ. I mean, obviously Myles Garrett is a playmaker on defense. I mean, I love that dude. But the rest of their defense is bad. They're still in the bottom half of the league in defense. Their defense is probably slightly better than the Titans just because of Garrett. But now that they've lost Olivier Vernon, coming off the other side, it's just not a dangerous defense. And then, the last team in the AFC is the Colts. I mean, this is just a vanilla team with an old quarterback. They definitely have a really good defense, but it's not like an aggressive defense. It's a fundamentally sound type defense, which is really good throughout the regular season. It helps you be, more consistent in limiting yards and points. But in the playoffs, you can't just have a pretty good defense and expect to win games. You got to come out and shut people down. And I don't think I've really seen that from the Colts a lot this season. A couple weeks ago, they had the game against the Steelers and just allowed them to come back and win on them. That's what a lot of these better teams are going to do to them. In my opinion, they're definitely the worst team in the AFC playoffs. All right, in the NFC, I'm having trouble deciding between the Saints and the Bucks who is going to be better. Both these rosters are absolutely loaded on both sides of the ball. I mean, for the Bucks, their third wide receiver is Antonio Brown, who just caught 2 touchdown passes last week. But the thing that the Saints have going for them is they've been missing Michael Thomas all season, and he's probably going to be back for the playoffs. Also with the Saints, they've just been more consistent than the Bucks this year. I mean, the Bucks have tons of firepower, but they've been just up and down on teams. They blew out the Packers, but they got some bad losses too. Meanwhile, the Saints kept winning even when Breeze went out, and they got their running back / tight end / H-back / fullback Taysom Hill playing QB for him. Still winning games. So I think I just based off the consistency that we've seen from the Saints this year, I got to give them the slight edge over the Bucks, but this Bucks team is good. However, another thing with them is they've been struggling with injuries all year too. The Bucks are solid on defense. 8th in total score and 6th in yards per play. And then obviously they have the firepower on offense too. So I'm not sure exactly how the seeding is structured, but in my mind, those are going to be the 2 teams that play for the NFC title. We're going to go ahead and put the Packers third. They've been the most consistent, explosive offense all season. The problem with the Packers, though, they don't have the defensive talent like the Saints and the Bucks do. And their overall skill players on offense, while they're really good, I mean, Devontae Adams is definitely a stud. It's not as well-rounded as the Bucks or the Saints either. Aaron Jones is not better than Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray combo, or the Ronald Jones-Leonard Fournette combo. I think what the Packers have going for them is that Aaron Rodgers is probably playing the best out of any quarterback in the league right now, and that will obviously help carry them, and they get a bye, obviously, which will help get them going as well too. But I wouldn't classify the Packers as a very well-rounded team, and they definitely have issues on defense. And that's kind of the same story with the Seahawks, although I think the Seahawks defense is even worse than the Packers. And with Seattle, it's actually not really their run defense too much. It's their pass defense. They're 31st in the league. Like, that's just not going to fly in the modern era of the NFL where teams throw the ball over the place. In the playoffs, we're going against the best quarterbacks in the league. So this team's going to go as far as Russell Wilson can carry him. I wouldn't put it past a guy like Russ to keep his team in the game by just outscoring people, but there's a lot of other good quarterbacks he's going to go against as well, too. All right, when it comes to the Rams and the Bears, it's basically, is Goff healthy or not? This Rams team is solid all the way around. They definitely have a good defense. They're actually more of a defensive team than an offensive team this year, even though Sean McVay gets credited for being, this offensive guru or whatever. Even though all he's doing is running the same inside-outside zone scheme that Kubiak and Shanahan have been running forever. But if Goff is healthy, they might even be better than the Seahawks. Although Goff isn't even close to the same kind of QB as Russ. So it looks like Goff is going to be questionable for the playoff game. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the Rams ahead of the Bears. But definitely pay attention to whether or not Goff is actually going to play in this game or not if you are looking to pick it. And with the Bears, I mean, they made a nice little run to get into the playoffs, but their defense has gradually gotten worse throughout the season. And while Trubisky has definitely brought some life to this offense scares nobody. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that this is a playoff team. I mean, this is just a barely average team. So to be honest, maybe if Goff is hurt, they're still not better than the Rams anyway. And then, of course, the last team in the NFC are the Skins. I mean, this organization is a disaster. Their owner is a complete dipshit fuckboy. They don't even have a team name right now. And their number one pick, my boy, Dwayne Haskins, is a complete doofus and got bounced off the team. Now, what the Skins do have going for them is they got a pretty good defense right now. And Alex Smith has always been a solid QB. But in the last week of the season, when the Skins had to win to get in, and they're playing a Philadelphia Eagles team who's literally resting half of their roster and put in the third string quarterback in the fourth quarter and still couldn't get the cover. I mean, it was a 6-point game in the fourth quarter. The Eagles are one score away from knocking them out. I mean, the whole NFC East punted this season, and yeah, they're definitely the worst team going to the playoffs for the NFC. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at these playoff lines. All right, so it looks like the Bills are going to be a touchdown favorite over the Colts, or actually it could be -6, -6.5, depending on where you're looking at. The line opened up at 6.5. All right, so the Bills are second in total score and 6th in yards per play. And the Colts are actually 9th in total score and 9th per yards per play. But when you play in a conference with the Jags, Texans, and Titans, who are 3 of the worst defenses in the league, and you get to play them twice per year, your numbers are going to be a little bit inflated. And defensively, yeah, Indy has a pretty good defense, but again, that's not great. Obviously, it's slightly better than the Buffalo Bills. I mean, the Bills are giving up 23 points a game, and the Colts are giving up 22. It's just not that much of a difference. Doesn't seem to be any new injuries for the Colts. Beasley's questionable. Diggs is probable for the Bills. So if this is a regular season game, I'd probably be looking at the Colts. But in the playoffs is where things change. I'm not going to use the power ranking handicap system that I got for the playoffs, because what typically happens in the playoffs is the better team wins and shows it. And with the Bills' momentum going on right now, yeah, I'll take a touchdown spread. I mean, I think they're going to roll this Colts team. This Colts team really just isn't that great. So, yeah, let's go. Bills -7. All right, the 4 o'clock game on Saturday are going to be the Seahawks minus the Rams. Game opened up at 4.5. Now it's moved to 3.5 pretty much everywhere. Offensively, the Seahawks are clearly a superior team. Obviously, Russ is prime time all day, every day. And DK Metcalf, I mean, let's go. So statistically, the Rams have the best total defense in the league. They're number 1 in total score, number 1 in passing yards, number 1 in yards per play. I guess I realized the Rams were good. I didn't realize they reached this point. I guess they might have a slightly better defense than the Ravens. For the Rams, their tackle Whitworth is probable. Goff is questionable. Kupp is probable. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely going with the Seahawks in this one. While the Rams' defense is clearly great this year, they just played the Seahawks a couple weeks ago, and the Seahawks put up 3 touchdowns on them. So it's not like Russ still can't make plays against this defense. And when it comes to the other side of the ball, it's just a matchup issue for the Rams. The Rams are more of a running team than a passing team, and the Seahawks' weakness is their passing game. Goff's just not the kind of guy that's going to be able to exploit it the way that other QBs would. And so this is just not a good matchup for the Rams, in my opinion. And yeah, I'll take 3 in the hook with the Seahawks. All right, next up on the night game for Saturday, Tampa Bay is playing at Washington. Tampa Bay is 3rd in total score, 7th in yards per play. They're 29th in rushing yards, though, which is pretty surprising since I think Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette are studs. I know they've had some injury issues this year, which could be why those numbers are a little bit down. I still think they're pretty good. And then, yeah, I mean, on offense, outside of Terry McLaurin, there's just nothing great about this offense for Washington. Now, defensively, Washington can play. 4th in total score, 2nd in yards per play, but Tampa Bay's not far behind them, so almost a wash right there. Shaq Barrett is probable. He had some COVID issues. Mike Evans is questionable. He kind of got banged up a little bit last game. I think Tampa Bay is going to absolutely stomp this team. I don't see how the Skins are going to score. I mean, it's definitely an improvement if they do have Alex Smith in there playing, but it's just not enough. I mean, when they struggle so hard against a Philadelphia Eagles team who's not been good all season, and they have all their backups in, and they have all the motivation in the world to win the game, once this Tampa Bay team shows up on a mission to, make it run to the Super Bowl, I think this game is going to be an absolute steamroll. I have no problem betting on Tom Brady in the postseason. All right, and the Sunday games are starting off with the Ravens traveling to Tennessee. This game opened up with the Ravens as a 4.5-point spread. Now it's down to 3.5, depending on where you're looking at. So yeah, the Ravens are 7th in total score on offense and number 1 in rushing yards. They are last in the league in passing yards, though, which really doesn't help them out. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a passing league. Tennessee obviously are not scrubs on offense either. I mean, they're the second best rushing team right behind the Ravens, and they're still 4th in total score. And even though they don't quite have the passing yards as probably a lot of other teams, Brown and Davis on the outside is definitely a problem for defenses. Defensive side of the ball, Ravens number 2 in total score, 7th in yards per play. And like we talked about earlier, Tennessee's defense is bad, really bad. For the Ravens, Ingram is questionable. Smith, the corner, is questionable. Snead, questionable. The big loss that the Ravens had for the year was Stanley, their tackle. And I guess Tennessee is extremely healthy, or OddsShark just does not update their injury report very well because they have one guy and he's questionable. So if anything going for the Titans is that they're healthy. I'm definitely going with the Ravens. They've covered their last 5 games. They have one of the best defenses in the league. And they got an absolute playmaker, Lamar Jackson, Dobbins, and this dude Edwards is a stud. I feel like the Ravens are probably a team with a little chip on their shoulder because they had so much momentum going to the playoffs last year and ended up blowing it against the Titans. Now it's their time to get payback, and I think they got the better team. All right, next up we got the Saints hosting the Bears. Offensively, the Saints are 5th in total score, 13th in yards per play. Bears 22nd in total score, 27 in yards per play. One of the best offenses in the league, against one of the worst offenses in the league. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Saints are better defense too. 5th in total score, 4th in yards per play. I mean, the Bears, they were in the top 10 for a lot of the season, but they've kept sliding back. 14th in score, 11 yards per play. I mean, this spread being 10.5 is probably about right for this game, but this is a complete mismatch. It's pretty much like the Bucks versus the Skins. I think the Bucks versus Skins is probably a better bet just because you got a better number than this one. But the Saints are going to absolutely steamroll this team. I mean, they're going to get Michael Thomas back. Even if they don't use him effectively, the fact that he's on the field is going to completely change against how they play defense against the Saints. I mean, I know I've been going pretty much chalk here, but I think there's a clear separation between the good teams in the playoffs right now and the bad teams. So I'm going to roll with the Saints for sure. And last but not least, for the Sunday night game, we got the Browns traveling to Pittsburgh in this heated rivalry. So on the offensive side of the ball, I think a slight edge goes to the Browns. Like, they're about the same in total score, but Browns are 11th in yards per play, and the Steelers are 26th in yards per play. That's not good at all. Steelers are the worst rushing team in the league, while the Browns are 3rd. While the Steelers have a better passing game than the Browns, I mean, it's just a pretty average pass game. This offense is really going to be determined by how well Ben plays. The real separation in this game is on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, the Browns are in the bottom half of the league on defense. Meanwhile, the Steelers are the 3rd in total score and 3rd in yards per play. I think the one advantage the Browns have in this game, which for me might be the deciding factor, is the Steelers are a better pass defense than they are a rush defense. And if you're going to play against the Browns this year, I mean, you got to stop that two-headed monster in the backfield. So while I think the Steelers are still a slightly better team than the Browns, I think the key word here is slightly. The spread on this game is 6 points when it seems like it should be a field goal. Browns are clearly going to struggle against the Steelers defense, but they're completely relying on Roethlisberger on offense to carry them because they just don't have a run game. Now, to be fair, the Browns are pretty bad on the back end of their defense, so maybe Juju and Claypool will give them problems. But both of these teams have been killed by injuries to star players. And while the Browns are only actually 6-10 against the spread this year, they did actually go 11-5. Later in the season, when they actually played some big-time teams like the Titans and the Colts and the Ravens, they showed up to play. I mean, they beat the Colts and the Titans. They put up 40-plus points on the Ravens defense. I mean, this Cleveland team is clearly a very emotional team that kind of plays to the level of their opponents. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns win, and I think 6 points is too much, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Brownies this weekend. Let's go. All right, so here are my picks for the weekend. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily make all these bets. We'll see how things shape out. especially with the Seahawks-Rams game. If Goff doesn't play, that'll change the number, which might make things tough to bet on. Obviously, that Saints number being at -10 is pretty tough, although I still think they're going to destroy the Bears. But yeah, here's what I like for the weekend. Go ahead and let me know what you think down in the comments. All right, y'all, that's it for the NFL. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the NBA. All right, so here are my power rankings right now for the NBA. Same kind of concept that I did for the NFL. Basically, what I did is I took all the NBA win totals that Vegas projected at the beginning of the season and ranked teams based on that, and then kind of made my own little, adjustments here and there based off my own, gut feeling. And then what I've been doing is every game that a team covers, they bump up a half point, and then every time they don't cover, they get bumped down a half point. In the NFL, I was giving teams a full point bump for getting an upset, but I'm not doing that here in the NBA. There's so many more games, get a larger sample size. I don't think I need to do that as much. So here are where teams currently stand right now. I've been, the numbers are kind of all over the place because I've been adjusting them here and there. But I'll go ahead and put this down in the description if you would like to reference it later. And then for the Thursday night games, I like the Mavs +3 over the Nuggets. I think those teams are pretty even with each other right now, so I'll definitely take the team that's getting, +3 with that. And then I got the Spurs +7.5 over the Lakers. This would actually be a pretty good line. However, there's a lot of rumors that with the Lakers that LeBron and AD might be sitting out tonight. So I want to go ahead and grab this number before that happens, because if this game does go through, then, and this is a pretty decent line, then hey, I got a 50-50 shot at hitting it. But by taking this at +7.5, and then it comes out later that LeBron and AD did sit, I have an advantage right there. So that's kind of the edge on that. But otherwise, this is probably a pretty good line at 7.5 against the Lakers. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with the NBA moving forward. With Throwdown Thursday, I think it was kind of more designed for the NFL because I was able to go over all the games and every week. And then obviously with college football as well. But with the NBA, there's games on every day. I was hoping to be able to, talk about teams and then make picks for big games going out through the weekend. But they don't really put up the lines that early in the NBA, especially nowadays in the NBA with players resting all the time. There's no point in these books making these spreads a couple of days out when they can change so drastically just over a short amount of time. So I'm still not sure exactly what I'm going to do with the NBA yet. I might just start doing basic daily videos, try to make them real quick rather than the half-hour long episodes I've been doing for the NFL and the college football. So I guess I'll keep you posted on that. And if anybody's wondering why I don't cover college basketball, it's because I think college basketball is boring. I'll watch the big matchups that happen, on the weekend and stuff like that every once in a while. Definitely going to go crazy for March Madness, and I'll definitely give a pat on the back to the NCAA this year. They're already out in front of it. They're holding the whole thing in Indianapolis. They're going to have the whole bubble procedure going down just like they did for the NBA. So thank God that we're going to have March Madness this year. When they canceled it last year, it was an absolute tragedy. But yeah, that's my thoughts on college basketball. So that is it for this week's edition of Throwdown Thursday. If you like my picks, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. If you think I'm an idiot, hey, feel free to speak your mind down in the comments as well. May the gambling gods bless us this weekend, and have a good one, y'all.